Welcome back to the Mental Playbook podcast. I hope you are following on all major podcast platforms like Spotify because this episode is going to be amazing. We are finally tackling the one and only sport, flag football, and I am here with Anthony Jackson, a seven-time national championship flag football coach, now the coach of the Oklahoma Women's Flag Football Club, which is really exciting. And then also, he's helped shape the growth of the sport from a young age, and not only in the US, but also internationally, which I'm really excited to talk about because I think that's a unique topic that not many people know about how flag football is, not only in the US, but it is in many other countries. So, Anthony, I'd love for you to tell the audience, kind of introduce yourself, and can you tell me when was the first time you became passionate about sports and more specifically flag football?
Yeah, well, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. My introduction to sports in general was like probably most people at a young age did probably didn't have a choice. Your parents throw you into a lot of different sports. Flag football, though, for me was different in that as I was playing tackle football in high school, I was had an opportunity to get introduced to flag football when I was around 15, 16 years old. Had a One of my uncles was playing in an adult men's league, asked if I wanted to play. They were doing a team new league in Dallas, which is really was a hotbed, still is, but certainly at the time. And from there was my introduction. Started playing with adult men as a teenage boy, and got exposed to a whole new world of flag football, and that was literally the beginning of a beginning right there.
Yeah, so you were literally playing in an adults men's league as a teenager, which is insane. What was that experience like? And what were some of the lessons that you kind of learned that you still carry today from that experience?
Yeah, great question. The funny thing about it, as far as experiences, you learn really quick that there's levels to the game. You learn really quick who the top players are, who the veterans are. Even back then, 15 years ago, there were people that have been playing it since the 90s. Some of those guys came from Dallas that are still involved in the game today, whether it's coaching or officiating, different positions like that. And it's cool to see. I was a young man then, teenage boy. They were grown adults then. Fast forward 15 years later, I'm kind of in the position that some of them were in. They're older guys, some of them still involved. And now there's like a new wave and opportunity for that next bunch to come up and be the new young guys on the scene. So a lot of that's the same principles still apply. Those that put in the work, you find out really quickly who the guys are because they're training, they're coming up with plays. If they're a quarterback, they're always in tournaments, and it's really the same formula, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it's really cool because I think for me, I only recently discovered flag football. Like it wasn't I don't think we had it in California as young as you did. So it's really cool that you got to experience that at the very early stages and with those individuals who were older and also playing back in their day. So that's really cool to see those gaps. Um, so you told me your sister played college flag football, and was that when you realized you wanted to get more into that women's sport?
Yeah, and that's really my introduction to women's side. So as I mentioned a minute ago, I started playing men's flag when I was 15. Was always off and on playing, coached high school tackle football, still was playing, had a men's team, still heavily involved. My sister started playing intramural flag football when she was in college, as you just mentioned. As she got more into that and it got more serious, she wanted to put together a team. And at that point, I was kind of already halfway in, halfway out of flag. Like I was on to different things. And we came up with ideas like, look, if you're going to do a team, who better to team up with than me? I've years and years experience into this. I have a lot of connections and friends in that world, and it'd be easy to put us in tournaments and really get going, put a team together. And that was about 2 years ago. And that was the introduction for me in the women's game. I knew some of the girls just from being involved in the men's side in tournaments. You see a lot of the familiar faces. You kind of know who's who as far as who's always winning and stuff like that. But the sport, compared to where it is now, was still totally, totally in the fundamental stages, like very beginning, even 2 years ago, certainly 15 years ago. And it's been a really interesting journey the last 2 years to see the sport evolve and get to where it's at, where now you have NFL funding, you have all these tournaments, all these college teams are involved. Everyone's trying to go D1. These tournaments are getting bigger, bigger, bigger. You have NIL scholarship deals. And literally, for me, my experience traces back to my sister asking me to get involved in it, and couldn't have been more blessed for that opportunity. I've met a lot of interesting and cool people along the way, and just glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, I love that you have those connections. And so your teams are competing at like a super high level and you said seven national championships. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think allowed that success to really happen so quickly?
Well, part of it, and honestly, I've been blessed to come across some really great people and great players that have trusting in me to coach them and be a part of my teams. It's not easy to get some of those players. Some of them I had from the beginnings. A lot of them I didn't. There's a lot of players that we found along the way and developed. There's people the way it is on the tournament circuit, people kind of have teams, and once they're with a team they typically don't really leave that team. So either you can are able to recruit somebody from another team, or you find a diamond in a rough, and we've definitely had players like that that kind of just come from another sport. Maybe they played college basketball or did college track, and want to learn about football, flag football, especially now with the popularity just growing and growing and growing. And I've really been fortunate enough to come across some really great women. And obviously, like the big thing for me is wanting to have a big cohesiveness team culture. And
Yeah.
really, the way I look at it, it's like putting pieces of a puzzle together. And when you find that winning formula, you don't go away from it. I'm always looking for people that are the most coachable, best attitude. You don't even necessarily have to be the best individual player, but if you're willing to learn to be coached, that's all I'm looking for. And we can find success from there.
I love that you said that because I think it's a common misconception that the best player is the one with the greatest numbers, the greatest stats. And now with NIL, social media, there's so much more factors involved. And so you've coached some of the best players in the world. What separates those elite flag football players, not just physically, but mentally, from everyone else?
I think, in my experience, girls that I've hands on with, the biggest thing that I can say, if I can point to one thing, is their dedication. There's girls that literally sacrifice social life, girls that literally sacrifice everything, blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of it you don't see. A lot of girls don't post their workouts. I have girls waking up every day. There's multiple girls that I have on just my team, waking up every day at 4 a.m., putting in an hour, hour and a half workouts in the weights, running, speed training, all that stuff. You don't necessarily see all of that. You just see the result of all that hard work. And some people think that they just naturally have those abilities. And there's certainly players that do, that have been gifted natural abilities, no doubt. But there's a lot of players that have to work for that. And some players, they just put their head down and grind, and they don't necessarily have to show you that they're in the gym every day. I know they're in the gym every day because I talk to them all the time, and I know a lot of the work that they put in, and it doesn't go unnoticed. But that's what drives them, not only for their individual success and for individually to get better, but because they want to be a part of something bigger than just them, whether it's a club travel team like I have with them, whether it's Team USA or whatever the opportunities might be. And I think intrinsically you have to have that, and I don't think it's something you can coach or teach somebody. Either you have it or you don't. Now, it is something I think you can develop with time. It's not something I think you're born with, but you have to want it at the end of the day. And that's what is one of the for sure big differences I would say between the top tier players and somebody who maybe just be on the cusp. It's just that dedication to go the extra mile.
Yeah, and especially with the sport developing, it's all about that passion and motivation for it. So I think it's cool to see that even now with some of those flag football players, like for the USA team, like you can tell they're dedicated and that they really want it, especially when they're also giving back to the community and you just putting in the work, even if we don't see it, it's you can tell. So I love that you said that. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so you've coached both offense and defense, which I think is really cool and is not really common at all. But how does this seeing the game from both sides of the field make you a better coach?
Great question. Again, for me, it ties back to when I was coaching tackle football here in Texas. When you start out, in Texas, unless you like personally played college quarterback or something, you have to do both sides. So you have to learn both sides, and in doing that, you learn tendencies and weaknesses of both offense and defense in a variety of ways. So those same strategies and principles I took to flag, and it's not something unique to me, but in my particular experience, that's was my background. And in doing that in flag, from a defensive perspective, when I look at offenses line up, I'm looking at formation. Of course, you need to be aware of personnel, but whether it's formations, down and distance, motions, and all that stuff, it's a lot of it is eye candy. A lot of it is particular strategy, or the offense is looking to do something, whether it's gain information or gain an advantage with anything. And that's how you have to look at it from a defensive point of view. It's not necessarily, oh, they're doing this, so let's do that. It's why are they doing this? And it's the same thing on the other side. If I'm on the offensive side, I'm calling, the offense has the ball, we're calling plays. I'm looking at what the defenses are doing. Are they staying in a particular zone? Are they matching up? If we move this particular receiver from the left side to right side, is their defensive back following them? Or are they kind of just matching up with who comes to their side? How are they adjusting to this formation? How are they adjusting if we're doing multiple quarterbacks? Everything that we're doing, at least for me, on either side of the ball, it's to gain intelligence for something later on in the drive, later on in the game, and trying to pick up on your tendencies. Everybody has tendencies. I have tendencies. The good coaches try to mask your tendencies. And, if you're a defensive coach, maybe try to disguise your coverages. If you're an offensive coach, mix up your play calls on particular downs. You can't do the same play offense or defensively every single situation, whether it's red zone, third and long. If you do the same thing over and over, if you're coaching against somebody else that is, above average coach, they'll pick up on it. So it's kind of like playing two games at once. You're also kind of playing chess at the same time too. So it's being able to see it from both sides really just broadens the scope of how you view the game.
Yeah, I like that comparison with chess because it is all about the next move.
Yeah,
And I think because these teams are all developing at the same time and growing, everyone's wanting to learn and they're waiting for the next move. So it's you got to be ready with something different, not just the same play over and
absolutely.
over. So since you've been involved in the sport for so long, I'd love to talk more about the history of it. So, how have you seen flag football evolve from when you first started playing to where it is today?
Sure. Again, when I started out at 15 years old, about 15, 16 years ago, it was literally leagues that were being played were like in the middle of a random park.
Hmm.
Um, Even their flag equipment was literally what you buy at Walmart today. You're wearing T-shirts. There's no really wearing matching uniforms. You're putting tape on the back of your jerseys. You might be playing for some cash tournaments here and there. In Dallas, there was really only one person having tournaments. A guy named Dennis Fields, a good friend of mine. And that's kind of it. And then it was like big tournaments, maybe in New Mexico or Arizona or Florida. Miami and Dallas have kind of always been hotbeds for flag football. Fast forward a couple years ago, now it's NFL flag is a really big thing. Now there's other team or other leagues, I should say, putting in a bunch of money to make professional leagues. Fast forward to now, where NFL has put millions and millions into this. You have the Pro Bowl event every single year involving celebrities, NFL players, flag football players being integrated. NIL deal, as I mentioned earlier, where now you have all these D1 colleges starting to pop up and giving full ride scholarships for athletes. And then as far as kind of touch back on equipment, you better make sure that you have the best equipment and all. There's so many vendors from flags to apparel, everything you can think of involved in the sport. There's people that are getting gloves and water bottles, all this stuff. It's a whole new market that has emerged, and there's really in some aspects an untapped market. And I see that not only here, but I've had the opportunity to go international and have different coaching opportunities internationally. And you kind of see the emerging markets firsthand. For example, when I was in Panama, I was asked to coach somewhat a little bit and help out with this event. And that was a particular situation where in that country, they're not fully funded as much as America per se. But the market and the sport is so brand new over there, where it reminds me of how it was 15 years ago over here. Because everything is somebody's trying to start a league here, somebody's trying to put a tournament on there, but you have this untapped market completely where a sport is being totally introduced. And then I go to Germany this past summer, a couple of months ago actually, to coach and outside of Frankfurt in this big tournament. It's one of the biggest tournaments in Europe called Big Bowl, and it's something that's been around for a few years there, but it's just now starting to pick up. So it reminds me of kind of how flag was maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years ago here. So it's almost like depending on where you are in the world, you get to see different almost levels of flag football in terms of the growth. And another untapped market that I haven't personally been to yet, but I am going very soon, is in Asia, where there's a lot. First of all, there's a lot of people over there. Number one, and there's a growing interest for the sport. And obviously, if there's interest in a market, there's going to be money. So you have people like Under Armour and other type of big money suitors that are putting on big tournaments and big events and funding national teams with gear, and all of this is just really exciting to see firsthand. And it's not too late for anybody to be involved in the sport. And if at any point, if any of you guys, men or women, want to be involved in the sport, now's the time to get in on it, because it's just about to boom right now, really.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because I think there are so many opportunities within it, not just playing, but like you coaching or like you talked about the brands that are developing and the gear and all of that. There literally is so many opportunities. And I'm really
Right.
curious to know if you thought back then, like, did you ever imagine flag football would become an Olympic sport?
That's a question that if you asked me even 2 or 3 years ago, I might have said yeah, but you would definitely, unless you were like a really hardcore flag football player, coach, or someone involved 2 or 3 years ago, it's something you didn't really fathom.
Mhm.
Certainly 15 years ago, zero chance. Zero chance. There's no way. Like, because even at the leagues or big tournaments, at least on the men's side, it's a lot of older fat guys, or you might have somebody who played college ball, and they're just they look like somebody unstoppable, but it's like one out of every 50 dudes you might see that. Now you go into any top level division of a flag football tournament, you might have 5 or 6 guys on one team that all played college football, and now they're playing flag. Even some of the guys on the higher level teams or Olympic team, or the national teams, I should say, that are aspiring to be on the Olympic roster, a lot of them played college football before, and they've now transitioned. And so you see that, and it makes you wonder. And obviously, with all the buzz going around with the Olympics, NFL players are chimed in, current and former, saying, "Hey, I want to be on that team."
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how, particularly on the men's side, obviously, if and they had it this year. RG3, former quarterback of Baylor and of the Redskins and other teams, he went out to training camp and he made it after the first cuts, learning the sport of flag football. And I can only imagine the gaining interest of particular NFL players is going to make the competition for those parts, for those positions, even more harder to make and harder to get. But I think that makes the team better. You want to have the best guys available. So NFL, not NFL, best guys is who you want out there. So to answer your question, it's not something I would have ever thought about a few years ago. Certainly not 15 years ago. But now, obviously, it's going to happen in 2028, and I could see it sticking around for 2032 in Australia, among other Olympic hosting places that I hope they continue, and they'll just continue to grow and grow. Honestly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm glad you brought up the NFL and stuff, and I think for those fans who've really only watched tackle football, what makes flag football unique and exciting as its own sport rather than just another version of tackle football?
Yeah, I think flag football, particularly 5-on-5, which is the format they'll be at the Olympics, it's much more fast paced. There's not so much downtime. It's just a few downs to get to the first down marker, then to get to the touchdown. And it's so many opportunities for one on one big plays, because it's 5 versus 5. So a lot of scenarios, if you're a part of a good offense, you want to get one on one scenarios. And especially if you have dynamic athletes on the field, men's or women, and such, even though it's a really confined space in terms of the field, it isn't 100 yard long field. However, it seems that way. And then you watch like the Fanatics event that Tom Brady threw with
Yeah.
they teamed up with Canes and some other sponsors, and even former NFL guys, even if they're your linebacker or receiver, if you don't know the nuances and the angles and the spacing, you're going to get exposed. And I think they maybe underestimated the flag football guys. Also didn't think they did a good job of selecting their NFL rosters, if you have former offensive or defensive linemen and linebackers, flag football is not the sport for big bodies. It's just not. It's for the sport for guys that are 150 pounds, 160 pounds, because you can stop and start and cut on a dime. Now, if you're going to be a bigger dude, like a receiver, then yeah, you could be 6'4", 6'5". And in flag football, even if you just have that size advantage, you really look like a monster and are unguardable. And you even saw that in the Fanatics event with some of the NFL players making one-hand catches on 2 or 3 guys at a time. And because of opportunities like that, it just makes it more exciting as a fan.
Yeah, I really love that. So, I want to talk more about your coaching mentality. And I think confidence, I can say, is definitely a big part of sports. As a coach, how do you help a player who has the talent and just doesn't truly believe in themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. I tell all my players, whether you're the best player on the team or the last person on the roster in terms of your ability, one thing you can't do is go into the game, go into any type of play thinking that you're not going to have success.
Mm.
You have to really believe in yourself and not only trust in yourself, but trust in your teammates and trust in the team to get the job done. And I always try to motivate and instill confidence in all of my players. And that goes into our game planning. That goes into how we're preparing for an upcoming tournament with studying on our opponent, giving them feedback on what we need to improve on, both as a team and individually. I have girls on my team that are often sending me film from them, either training or from tournaments or league games that they're playing. Hey, what can I do to improve with my defensive technique here? Hey, if it's offense, hey, how can I do better on my route here? Or hey, if it's quarterbacking, what should be the read here? Or what do you think about this play? And all of that is really what I want to say is preparation. The more you're prepared, the more you are confident within yourself. And even if you're lined up against somebody who may be on paper better than you or more formidable than you, if you're prepared going into that, that confidence instilled in you is going to do pay dividends. And in fact, I'm a big believer of using fear as a motivator instead of putting that fear in front of you and stopping you. Put it behind you and drive you forward through your obstacle, and you'll be surprised on what some motivation like that can really do for a player.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so when those players do make a costly mistake during a game, what is your advice for them?
Oftentimes, depending on what the mistake is, if it's something, and this again is something else I'll tell, even before a game, during the game, whatever, mistakes are going to happen. That's
Yeah.
part of the game. If you think we're going to have a mistake-free football game, the entire tournament, it's going to happen. At some point, things are going to go wrong. It's how you respond to that. So if it's a critical mistake, whatever it is, you pick your head up. We're on to the next play. Let's identify what made that mistake happen or how it happened and how we can avoid that. And then we forget about it and move on. We're not dwelling on the past. So often I've seen players, really good players, make a mistake and just get in their own head from that point on, and they never recover because they can never move past that initial mistake, which then leads to 2 or 3 or even more mistakes throughout the series of a game or a tournament. And it can really kill a player's confidence and even a team's vibe. So the biggest thing for me is to shake it off. Let's learn from it and let's wipe our chin, get up and let's go. There's no time for crying. There's no time for my bads. It's get better and let's move on. And that's kind of like the mental approach I try to have for everyone on my team, just as a coach, as a player, whatever it is. No matter what happens, we're going to shake it off. There's nothing that can happen to us that we can't handle and move on from. So just being confident that mistakes happen. Teammates will pick you up. Nobody's pointing the finger at you. Hey, we're on to the next play. Let's get it back. Let's go get a play. Let's make them make a mistake now. So that's
Yeah.
our approach.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I definitely think it's hard because you can be very driven and very confident and I mean, yeah, there's always gonna be those mistakes and I think that's the cool part. Like you said, it's all about how you recover from it and then also
Exactly.
making sure that it's not your identity, like moving on from it because it can really impact the rest of the game and the rest of your mindset as well.
Absolutely.
So, what's the most important thing a coach can do to create an environment where athletes feel comfortable asking for help?
Yeah, I think really being transparent and open with your players. I've seen both good and both bad coaching techniques in my experience in flag football. I think the more willing a coach is to be open to say, hey, I don't have all the answers about something, and be collaborative with players at times really empowers the players. There's a lot of times, especially honestly on either side of the ball, whether it's defensively or even offensively with the quarterback, that if we're talking about something and we're game planning throughout the game, maybe even during the course of a drive, let's say it's a timeout or whatever the thing is, we'll talk and I'll ask them, what do you think? And I'll take their opinion. And if it makes sense, we'll do it. And if it doesn't work, well, then we'll correct that from there. And I think that even kind of ties back to your other question of instilling confidence. And for my players, anybody that I ever had, it lets them know that, hey, I have as much say as coach. This is my team too. I can make a decision and stand on it. And I tell them at the end of the day, I can sit here and I can give us the game plan from the sideline all day, all night. I can call it every play. I can call it every defensive adjustment. But at the end of the day, it's you guys that are on the field. So it's you guys that have to make the play. So at some point, I can't hold your hand. You have to make the play anyways. And part of that is you guys having to make decisions in real time. You know, for example, if you're on a defensive side and let's say two receivers are doing some type of crossing combination, it's on you and your teammate to make a decision if your guys are switching that or following those receivers through the pick routes or whatever the case is. It has nothing to do with me. I'm on the sideline. You guys are the players. So that's kind of it all kind of ties in like that, whether it's confidence and empowering players. And that's kind of my approach to it as far as making them comfortable and making them like really be reassured in themselves that they deserve and belong to be there in the first place.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I'm now curious to talk about how the mindset of coaching is different internationally. And you've coached internationally in places like Panama and Germany. And I'm really curious and excited to hear about that experience, if you could share that.
Yeah, Panama was great. As a country, and just first of all, just to put in perspective, Panama internationally is kind of like on the cusp of like if there's like tier one, tier two, tier three international teams. In my view, certainly on the women's side, and maybe the men's side to some extent, they're kind of on the cusp of a tier two, tier one team where they're just a couple pieces or maybe a coach away from becoming a powerhouse in the region. Because in the Americas, you have USA and Canada and Mexico, obviously, that really dominate. But Panama is kind of like that fourth string that's always in the mix, that fourth wheel, if you will. And and you see that at these events where there's a lot of just raw talent, a lot of raw talent. Coaching side is kind of hit or miss, kind of from what I've seen, but definitely players in terms of ability they have it. Maybe the technique and development they're looking to get there, but they just maybe don't have the proper guidance. And I saw that firsthand in Panama, and it opened my eyes because with all that said, they're just as passionate as anywhere else that I've been in America, in Texas and Florida and wherever else to do flag, whatever big tournament, they want to win just as much as anybody else. And then you go to Germany and you see teams that are used to the European style of play, which is totally different than what we do on the Americas. A lot of particularly like even like Mexico and some U.S. We do a lot of multiple quarterbacks. It's a lot of athletes. It's a lot of this, a lot of that. In the European ball that I've been exposed to, it's a lot of you have some of that, but it's a lot of kind of drop back and mesh routes, and it's just totally different. It's almost even like a lot of trickery is almost involved, and it's not like they don't have athletes. Certainly, German national team and players that I've seen, French national team and players that I was exposed to, they certainly have that. But for the whatever reason, the nuance of a European football is just totally different, and the coaching style often from what I saw was also totally different. Americans have and maybe it's true, maybe it's not, of a stigma of being like really raw and in your face coaching style, which I may or may not do that at times, but overall, nobody would really say that's my coaching style. I'm more of a player's coach, and definitely, I'll bark at you if I need to. Europe, to me, what I saw, everything was super laid back. The coaches were kind of not, you don't even really notice who's the coach because they're kind of just there almost observing. And I'm like, I'm coaching against some of the coaches from certain national teams on these European teams. I'm like, like, what is the coaching here? I don't even hear from the coach. Like, I always observe other coaches too when I'm coaching and just see how they're responding to their players and trying to go in from there. All of this goes into strategy when you're preparing for a team. But the players, I had so many players from whether it's a German national team. Obviously, I had some girls on the French national team the team that I was coaching, and girls from the UK out there, and they come up to you and they're like really impressed on what we're doing, and it's like I was actually kind of surprised that they weren't doing some of those similar things, but I think that kind of goes into them getting caught up with how the Americans kind of do the sport. Obviously, a foundational country here in the sport, but really right now, I think both experiences kind of opened my eyes on what those regions have going on right now, but also kind of shows you how things are going to be shaped going forward. And particularly Europe, there's a lot more resources there, obviously, just with the countries, with their financial situation. And so they have a few tournaments that go on annually in different parts of Europe. And which is so cool too, because regionally you can go from France to Germany to Denmark to Croatia, and it's so different, and you have these different type of entities that are being involved in flag, and it's just really interesting to be a part of having those experiences and getting different takeaways from those things, and I saw a lot of different things, and those were some of them.
Yeah, I love that. It's definitely some different playing styles. And then I'm also curious to learn more about the cultures, the football cultures, depending on the country you're coaching, because we kind of talked about like sometimes there's a language barrier, and like you said,
Yeah.
the coaches are, coaching way differently than the US. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, definitely language barriers, and I can speak on my team. I had particularly we had probably two or three girls from a French national team experience that either spoke some English or maybe no real English at all. So we're implementing defensive or offensive game plan, and we don't speak the same language. So having to do different body gestures or cues or just literally pointing at your play sheet on a wristband, but having those having that as a trial or tribulation, if you will, actually made the team cohesiveness grow, because it's like, hey, we're in this battle together, just trying to overcome, even communicating to each other while also trying to defeat an opponent. And most, the teams that at the later rounds of the playoffs were, formidable opponents. We played against the national team of Japan, and some women from the Great Britain national team, and hey, not only are we competing against an opponent, we're competing with this language barrier, but the attitude was great. I couldn't have asked for a better team in terms of that. Like people who wanted to be coached, people who wanted to get better, who were okay with being criticized and wanted a constructive feedback on how they can get better, or what should we do here. And even on the defensive side, we're putting some stuff that they didn't have much experience in. A lot of the European teams, and really a lot of international teams in general, they typically play a lot of zone. Just in general, defensively, you don't really see too much teams play man, certainly not from international teams. And that's something for me, my teams, that's like one of the main things we do is we play man to man defense. You
Yeah.
don't have help. It's you one on one. It's you one on one. I tell girls, guard who's in front of you. If you can't guard who's in front of you, you switch with somebody. If you can't guard anybody on the field, you come stand next to me on the sideline. We'll get somebody else out there. So, but they didn't have a choice. You have a choice to either accept the assignment or come off the field, and they accepted the assignment, and we did a good job. And after that, they were like, so like I couldn't believe I could do that. Like they almost, like, going into it, they never thought they would ever be able to do that, because it's something they either don't do at all, or they have self-doubt, whatever it is. No, we're gonna remove all doubts. Remove all doubts. You can do it, and you will do it. And that was a particularly unique experience we had in Germany, at least on the defensive side, and offensively getting to do a lot of cool stuff with multiple quarterbacks. And again, because that's something that's not typically done in Europe. So we had a few Americans on the team, and we're doing two or three quarterbacks in the backfield, and defensively, that's already hard enough to game plan, even if you're used to it. And certainly, if you're not used to seeing that, it looks like a completely different sport almost. And you got to make sure you have the right personnel to defend that. And all that was great. Panama culture was really great. Latin America, it's very like family oriented, and like the tournament they have going on, they have the reggaeton music blasting. They have, like, it's almost like a party in the stands going
That's
on while,
fun.
while this tournament's going on, and everybody, if you're not playing, you're watching, you're hanging out, you see people dancing on the sideline. It's totally different. And then like the Germany tournament, literally right next to the field is a massive tent where they're cooking Wiener Schnitzel, and they have tons of beer. So there's like a lot of beer drinking at the tournament from other teams and spectators, and it's like an all day thing from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. People are drinking beer and playing, and it's like a crazy environment too. And you have big speaker systems. So both were really cool experiences, different in their own right, and I would love to go back again.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the different perspectives and then the reactions from some of the athletes because it truly is a learning experience where it goes both ways. So I love that you got to have that experience as well because there's always something you can learn from it and take from it and apply it to your other team. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it was.
So when I first connected with you, one thing you've been passionate about is promoting others, like coaches and players instead of just yourself. Why is that so important to you?
I think that's something that's just inherent within me and also how I was raised. I was always taught to, as you lift and climb and elevate, you lift others up with you. Just because you elevate your position or status or whatever it is, promotion, doesn't mean that you have to get there by stepping on the neck of somebody else to climb. No, you lift somebody else up with you. And then, and then two, it's really just a genuinely good feeling to help somebody. Like if it's a
Yeah.
friend of yours or whatever, like just to be good and helpful to somebody. And I always try to promote people, like, especially for this sport, the way I got introduced to it, I've met a lot of people that helped me in some type of way along the way, whether it was like doing my own teams, getting me into a tournament, just building friendships. Like I've met genuinely good people along the way that have always been good to me, and I just really inherently feel obligated to also do that for other people, whether it's a player of mine or even there's even players that I play against all the time that I've never played with, always playing against, or maybe I've played with them one time. They came to under me if their team wasn't in it, but I'm like maintain great relationships with them and always try to promote them. One of those being Ashley Clam. She's a good friend of mine and a good friend of one of the girls on our team, Kennedy Foster. And it's really good if you're genuinely a good person and like, making authentic relationships with people outside of it. It's just something really good to do because after the game is over, you're at these tournaments all day. You might as well like make friends with people that are there because it really is a big communal thing. It's a big community and it's nice. I know I don't always look like the most approachable person at a tournament, or my personality sometimes can be more reserved, but I really am a social and friendly person. And I'm just like anybody else. I like to meet new people and have new experiences. And if there's anything I could ever do to help out a friend of mine, I'm like more than willing to do that. I'll bend over backwards for any of my friends to try to help them connect with somebody that's really cool that I think they could build something with, or there's a good opportunity for them to make money on the flag football deal or whatever it is. Like I would love, and I don't need anything. I don't need to get anything out of it. Just out of, hey, you're my friend. Hey, I think this is cool. If you'd be involved in this, check it out if you're interested. As simple as that.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how I am, really.
Yeah, I love that. I do think it can be difficult, especially being on a team and playing a sport because there is competition and it can definitely get in the heads of people. And I think definitely instilling those values in your team is really important. And I am curious, how do you specifically build that team culture where everyone is going towards that same goal versus trying to kind of one up each other?
Yeah. And it's not something that has happened overnight, even within like my team, from the very first team I did to like within year one to now, there's been a lot of growth within the team, even within my own coaching style in this sport. I've had to make adjustments. There's been players that have just not been good fits for the team, personality wise or, otherwise. And that's part of it. And anybody who's ever played for or with me and, doesn't, it's always been all business. Like, hey, it's friendship and there's flag football. Those are two totally different things. We can be friends and not play on the same team together, or decide, hey, it's best that we go in different ways for whatever reason. And I don't take it personal, and I would hope nobody else would take it personal because it is at the end of the day, it's flag football. It's a sport. Like we should be having a fun time doing this, and whether it's just like a work or any other function where it's a group, like not everybody's a good fit for everybody. And that's just the reality of it. But if you're able to like be cognizant of that and be a clear and open communicator, I think that really eases a lot of what could be tensions or conflicts. And for me, I don't have an issue with conflict whatsoever. Confrontation is not a problem. But I am a really good communicator, and I'm always looking to like just really be very blunt and upfront with any conversation. And I think that goes a long way, and people are appreciative of that, even if the conversation is not something pleasant or not something they want to hear, but at least they could respect, the honesty and fruitfulness about like, hey, I'm going to be really forward and honest about this. This isn't going to work, and for this reason, and let's still be friends if you want. If not, okay, that's fine too. I'm not going to cry about it. It's
Yeah.
fine. But it'd be nice, those are two different things: flag football, friendships. But all like through doing that over the last 2 years is got this my team where it is now, where I don't have any issues. Like there's no like that's gone. So and not that I even really had that to begin with, to be honest with you. But if there was any chance of that, that's been way ironed out a long time ago.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, you don't have to get along with everybody, but it is important to, like you said, I like that you brought that up, that it is, flag football and friendships. There's boundaries there. So having those, and definitely it is definitely hard to have those conversations for some people. I know for me it is difficult to bring it up, but it doesn't hurt. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do think if there is tension or
Mhm.
you're not close with someone, and it's always good to communicate. That's the best way to deal with those things. So
100%. Absolutely.
yeah, so you brought up some of my favorite players, Kennedy and Ashley. Who are some current flag football players, it could be men or women, that you think fans should be paying attention to right now?
Yeah. Ooh, good question. There's really so many to pick from.
Hmm.
Obviously, like I want to just list you like my entire roster.
Yeah.
Because that's just how I am. I'm
Yeah.
biased, and those are my friends. Of course, I mean, you
Yeah.
mentioned Kennedy, you mentioned Ashley. I'll shout out the Team USA girls that I have. One being Kennedy, another one being Keita, another one being Kendra. Those were, and those two particularly were brand new additions to the Team USA roster this year, first timers.
Oh.
There's a lot of girls that the name you have Lacey, one of the top quarterbacks. One of the top, maybe the overall best player in flag football, Izzy. I mean, she's like just genuinely a good person. She's always been somebody on the opposite side of the field. We've always competed against each other, but just a really class act, genuinely good person to talk to off the field too. There's a lot. You have Michelle that's on my team. You have Alyssa. You have Jazz. There's too many to name, and I don't want to keep naming people, and then I don't name somebody, and then I get in trouble. But those are some that for sure that come to mind at competitors. As far as and there's a lot of up and coming players too. A girl named Jada who we've been doing tournaments together for. She's be playing at Nebraska. There's a lot of girls that are under the radar because they maybe haven't been playing on a top club team, and they're maybe 19 or 20 or 21, whatever it is, years old, and they don't have a big name or a big following. But there's a lot of players that they're going to be making their name here pretty soon in the ranks. And like I said, there's too many to name. I'll give you a couple with those, and I'm sure I'll get in trouble for not naming somebody on my team. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned some of those incredible girls, because I do think that it is important for people who are interested in flag football or have never even watched it or heard of it, like to know that there are these incredible athletes who are working hard, and they're out there right now practicing, playing, and competing. And I mean, when the Olympics comes, we're gonna want to be ready with our signs and posters, and you know, we're ready to be fans. So I'm glad you mentioned those girls. So if someone is watching this right now and wants to get involved in flag football, whether it's as a player, as a coach, or a fan, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, you know what? I think this would be, and I'll leave you guys with this too. I think that's a great question. I think wherever you are, in whatever opportunity you have, whether it's a youth team, boys or girls, um, making your own club team as a player or coach, however you can get involved, just get involved. Take an opportunity and just take a chance at it. I mean, that you're only gonna like realize if you like it or not by actually doing it. And if you do it and don't have success or don't like it, give it another chance with something else, with maybe a different group or a different league or whatever. And you never know what opportunities like will open. For me, my most recent thing I have going on, as you mentioned at the beginning, I'll be coaching the freaking OU women's club team. Like, I never thought that was going to be a thing, but a friend of mine, Lacey, who we've done some tournaments together, a quarterback, she connected me with the president, and we hit it off, and they're looking for a coach, and then here I am like doing this, and that's like something I really didn't like even plan on doing. Kind of just fell in my lap, to be honest with you. And of course, different international opportunities. The biggest thing I can say is like just take an opportunity and just take a stab at it, especially players, especially women in the game right now. More and more club teams are being established. Tournaments starting to be expanded. More money's getting put into it. Just give it a try and try to connect with somebody. And if you ever see this, if you find this video, connect with you, connect with me. Like I can, somebody can connect with you and put you in something, and somebody will notice you and start your own team too. Like that's something that's very hard to do sometimes, but like make your own path if there's not opportunity for you to hop on with somebody else and just give it a shot. I mean, why not? Like just go for it. Like that's the attitude you should have. And I think it's a really great time to be involved in the sport.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Anthony, you mentioned dedication. And so my little cousin, she's 10 years old and she started playing flag football, no experience. And there are so many youth clubs developing, whether it's girls or boys. And it's so interesting because I've talked to other teams at that age and I'm like talking to the coach and they're either like a parent or just someone who volunteered to coach this team.
Exactly.
And it's so crazy because there is so much more interest and it's like, well, I mean, there's like not it's weird to say not real coaches, but
Right.
people are still getting involved and they're learning along the way. So I think that's a really cool another opportunity that everyone is kind of taking advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to your point, yeah, especially just like with any youth sport, oftentimes the coach is somebody's parent or somebody's big brother, or if you're like doing adult like college teams, like intramural teams, it's somebody's boyfriend or a guy friend, or maybe some of the if you're in a sorority league or something, it's the frat guys, whatever it is.
Mhm. Yeah.
Maybe not, they're not coaches, but it's like they're trying to guide and give you some insight. But it's you can't really, you can't have it all. You can't
Yeah.
pick your coaches. You can't, sometimes in some scenarios, but just get going in the sport, especially as obviously if somebody's in youth, if you have a younger brother or sister or cousin, whatever it is, get them involved in the sport.
Mhm.
Just get them interested and excited about sport, even if the team sucks, even
Yeah.
if the quarterback or the coach, whatever it is, not optimal, they're not getting the playing time. Just get them to like it and let them hang around for a year or two. And, more likely than not, in my experience in the sport, they'll find a way and find something that they really are drawn to, a particular group of people or some type of avenue that they'll really enjoy the sport and take off with it.
Yeah, there's so much to it, and it's all very exciting. So, my last question for you, I ask this to all of my guests, and it's what matters most to you, the destination, the journey, or the company, and why?
Wow, that is a good question. I'd be interested to know what most people think. You know what? The destination I think is the goal, of course. And sometimes in the journey it can be ups and downs, and that makes you appreciate it at the end. But honestly, I think I do enjoy the company because I'm a big loyal person, family oriented. I rock with my people, win, lose, draw, whatever. Whether the journey is good or bad, the destination we reach it or not. If I got the people with me, I got my dogs with me, that's what I'm going to lean on. And I think I enjoy the company the most on the people that are going to rock with me because I rock with them. I'm a big ride or die person, and I like to be surrounded with people that are similar in that way too. What do people
Yeah.
usually say when you ask them that question?
So I get all of them, and it's crazy because to me, when I first saw that question, my dad introduced me to that question, and I was like, company. Obviously, it's company. But now I do think for me, it's changed to kind of journey because it's hard to say. There's not one right answer, but
Right, exactly.
it's like you mentioned, the ups and the downs, and I've realized that I've learned a lot through that, and through I've learned a lot from myself through that, through the challenges and how to overcome those challenges. And that's why I speak to people like you, is because I want to learn how you overcome mistakes and challenges because it definitely does broaden people's perspectives and kind of can change your mindset and you can learn habits through it and just it's all to, live a healthy life. And so it's interesting to hear people's responses because I think it truly shows the values that they have. And from you, I definitely got that company vibe, which is amazing because it is about the people too. It's that team culture and going through them on your journey to that destination or to those multiple destinations. So yeah, variety of responses, but I love them all.
Well, it's a great question. And, again, I appreciate the time to an opportunity to even be considered for this and definitely would love to run it back and
Mhm.
see if we can touch base later on and go from there.
Yeah, and we wish you the best of luck in your new position and all that's yet to come. To my listeners, mind strong, game on.
Thank you.